All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We apologize for the issues with the password, but glad that everybody was able to make it in. So to start off, we are going to be focusing today's webinar on connected data to power your business. And our presenters today are Oracle and Apex IT. And if we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So to run through our agenda, today we will be covering Oracle's customer data management capabilities and Oracle DataFox and how they go hand in hand. We'll hear from Apex IT on how to keep your data clean, healthy, and sufficient, and jump into how Oracle can help. You will hear from Oracle on how we leverage DataFox day-to-day to drive more business, and finish with a few customer stories. Throughout our presentation, we ask that you stay muted, but please do use the chat feature to ask any questions. If there's anything that you would like to see, or if you have any specific questions, make sure to put them in the chat. And Allison from Apex IT will be monitoring the chat, and our main DataFox presenter, Marty, will stop periodically to ask if there are any questions in the chat, and she'll let him know if there's anything specific that he can cover, so feel free to chat away. And with that, I will hand it off to Apex IT.
Great, thanks Patricia. My name is Malik Baliani. I'm a Solution Director with Apex IT. And I thank you all for joining today. And really what we wanted to do was walk you through essentially some of the challenges and pain points of how Apex IT works with customers around master data management and how we believe it's more of a people, process, technology, and data focus. So when you think about customer data management, when you think about DataFox, the initiative of what that starts with is a business problem or a business challenge. There could be duplicate information, there could be the inability to identify a customer record or a contact record. And that starts with essentially the philosophy that we like to engage with our customers around master data management and what that includes, covering the 4 pillars or work streams. That's making sure that we have the right folks in the room to drive conversation around the value proposition for a business challenge, making sure that we've got the buy-in from executive leadership to be able to help drive that initiative as well. But really then focusing on the business processes. What are the pain points? What are the challenges related to data or lack of data? And how do we essentially solve that challenge or that problem for our customers? And then of course, we'll also cover and how that relates to technology around CDM and DataFox today with enhancing and enriching that information once we've identified what that deduplicated account or customer record is. And really a lot of our customers and what we're understanding and learning in the market is the intent of putting together an MDM methodology to be able to determine what that future state solution would look like around an MDM methodology. So this master data management methodology essentially was created to help organizations understand what it looks like from a process to get from where they are today to where they want to be tomorrow, whether it's building out a constituent 360, whether it's identifying additional attributes for customers or prospects through a marketing campaign, or whether it's essentially being able to determine what additional attributes would be needed as your prospect journeys through your customer lifecycle from prospect to cash. And so this simple and I'd say flexible 5-step process allows us to be able to determine who the audience is, what the information is that we're looking to identify as maybe a gap today or what we'd like to focus on in the future. And this methodology allows us to be able to focus on what your data looks like today. What are those use cases or scenarios that we'd like to essentially work through and identify with some of that capabilities of the future, and then really sit back and identify and work through the fit gap analysis of what do we have today, what are we looking for tomorrow, and then how do we essentially get to that crossroads of the end state. And so by using this methodology, working with our customers, what we've identified is the need for clean, healthy, and sufficient data. And so what that looks like essentially is the ability for identifying and locating what the starting point would be for a logical example of what clean data might be, right? What is healthy data and what is sufficient data? So really focusing on the KPIs and the key qualifying indicators, the KQIs of what those goals are, whether it's for sales, whether it's for sales ops, whether it's for marketing, whether it's for service. There are different customer attributes that are needed for a specific department within an organization. And our philosophy and methodology, being able to go to market of solving these challenging solutions and questions and pain points for our customers, allows us to do that very systematically. So when we think about data and how clean it might be, here are some of the questions that we essentially ask of our customers or our prospects. It's identifying the current state of what are the issues of what they're focused on today, right? What are those challenges around how clean is your data? Looking at various source systems, whether it's a current CRM that you may have, whether it's a current spreadsheet that you're creating as a pseudo master, or whether it's, you know, a homegrown database that you've essentially cultivated over the years because you don't have something in place today to be able to drive continuity or a constituent 360. And so as you look at the questions here, what these questions allow us to do is identify from a sales perspective specifically where those current challenges are, where the pain points are, what your current state looks like in terms of quality of data. And that's essentially the baseline for what we want to solve for as some of those challenges and pain points that our customers are bringing to us, right? Allowing us to be able to identify what the concerns are today, and then building with them a methodology around what are some of the KPIs for cleaner data that you want tomorrow? What are some of those drivers from a sales perspective, specifically in this example, that leadership is asking of you to produce as middle managers, or that your middle managers are asking you to produce as sales reps? What data don't you have today, and what data are you looking for tomorrow? And so the how clean is your data approach really in this specific aspect focuses on what you have and what you don't have, but also the quality of that. And this aligns to our methodology in the first, I'd say, beginning phase of the data quality and the data profiling, taking a look at some extracts of the current systems that you're using today and looking at the quality of it, looking at how essentially clean it is. Are there duplicates? Do you have multiple duplicate records for a customer? Is it hard to be able to identify all of the opportunities that are associated to a specific customer because you're entering in opportunities for the same customer within different records? And so allowing us to kind of get under the hood and ask these strategic questions with both business and IT, right? Because we understand that the business owns the data, but IT essentially is allowing us to be able to mine the data on their behalf. We're able to get a clear picture and view from both identifying the business challenges, but also some issues or components of supporting that data or the data model from IT perspective as well. So if we continue to look at how healthy the data is, you can see as to what those questions look like in terms of driving cultivation and driving pipeline from a sales perspective to make sure that you're not essentially getting stuck at a particular stage. Do you have the information to be able to close the deal? Do you have the information or the white paper or the data to be able to progress the sales stage in the life cycle of your opportunity? What don't you have today? Where are your pain points? Where are your challenges? For managers, do you have the forecasting capabilities? What information don't you have? So these are all questions essentially from a sales perspective that we get asked on a regular basis as to how we can help solve these challenging yet simple problems for our customers. And really being able to look at the opportunity of how this is split amongst multiple accounts as it is today. That current state analysis really allows us to be able to get a good understanding as to where those challenges are, but also then allow us to be able to apply our methodology and our best practice recommendations to solve those challenges and pain points for you, right? Whether you're in business, whether you're IT, what our process allows us to do is become very simplistic in the approach, but in terms of documentation, understanding of how that's going to become healthier in the future, we're able to pinpoint some of those challenges and identify KPIs for healthier data in the future as well. As we transition to the sufficiency of data, you'll understand and begin to see somewhat of an opportunity life cycle here that's going to either support or not support how we're going to be able to get the sufficient data to actually close the deal. So being able to, again, progress it through the life cycle, looking at what is the current ratio of win-loss, why they were lost, essentially, the reasons that we're losing some of the deals. Is it from a lack of data? Is it from a lack of solution set? What is the actual underlying issue or concern as to why we're losing deals to our competitors, or as to why we're essentially not moving opportunities to the life cycle, why they're stagnant in a specific stage, for what reason? Again, these all sound like very simple questions, but when you start to uncover and peel back the onion, and what we've learned and kind of cultivated into a methodology working with our customers, is really the ability to understand all the pain points and challenges when you have the right people in the room. And that's why we say our approach is people, process, technology, and data, because of the questions that you're seeing on the screen, we're not going to be able to solve these challenges working with just IT, right? We need to understand, essentially from a business point of view, what their challenges are in association to the data as well. So with that, we introduced the topic of how we take our methodology, what in terms from a process and a perspective of clean, healthy, and sufficient data looks like for a sales organization. But then also, as we transition to the technology and data aspects of our methodology, we introduced the concept of Oracle's customer data management. Now, most of you on the phone that either currently are looking at Oracle's CX sales and service, or actually currently own it, actually already have Oracle customer data management as part of the underlying data model, right? And you just may not know it. But what Oracle's customer data management allows you to do, it's the actual algorithms and think of the complex functionality that's available in your true master data management applications like an Informatica or a Prophecy. And what Oracle has done is taken that complex capabilities and have built it into an application data master like CDM. Now, the benefits of that for customers that currently own Oracle CX is that it's already available, but we have a lot of other customers that currently aren't on the Oracle stack, but also benefit from the capabilities of CDM that may have Salesforce, that may have Dynamics, because Oracle CDM is a true differentiator in terms of what it can bring to the table and its simplicity of its ability to scale and stand up at a rather faster go-to-market as opposed to a more traditional master data management project or program. And so what Oracle's customer data management, or CDM, brings to the table, it allows you to standardize data and enrich it, and the plug-in of that and how we're going to discuss the DataFox aspect. But it allows you to, in real time, identify duplicates and resolve those without having to have a lot of hands-on maintenance around that. So if we've got multiple records of Apex IT, for example, in your current database, what Oracle CDM will allow you to do is identify all of those duplicate records and very systematically identify some attributes or fields that we want to use in terms of deduplicating those records, whether it's organization name, whether it's DUNS number, whether it's physical address. CDM has the engine behind it to be able to deduplicate your records faster, and it's more fluid to be able to provide some of that continuity that we're looking for, the single best version record, or the master record, as we like to call it. How does that help organizations? So of course, with less duplicates in your system, you're talking about better employee experience, but also better customer experience in terms of how our sales folks can go and position this or service our customers better. Of course, with less duplicates, you've got faster, more accurate reporting, improved analytics. And the biggest key is, the scalability of what Oracle CX can bring to the table if you've got an identified customer master record. So Oracle CDM, just to dive in a little bit more of the details in terms of what it can do, its ability to be able to look and feel, plug into Oracle's CX Sales and Service Cloud today, to be able to identify and build a cross-reference system with other systems that it integrates with. And this is why it's powerful within the current Oracle CX stack, but also externally for customers that may be on other CRMs as well. Because you have the ability to integrate it, you have the ability to be able to build out a single master record while creating a cross-reference to the other systems. And really, from a technical standpoint, you're able to create the cross-reference so that the other systems, whether it's an ERP, whether it's a marketing system like Eloqua, whether it's additional systems that you're integrating with outside of the Oracle CX suite, you're able to identify and know which Apex IT account record is the account record that you've built into your master. So if you're talking about a roll-up report, if you're talking about a customer 360, if you're able to look at end of year reporting on how much we're selling into a specific customer across different regions, across different business units, Oracle CDM allows you to be the engine within or the ancillary system around that in a true hub and spoke, right? So it consolidates, cleanses, completes, and shares that data so that you can build out a robust customer 360 in other systems that may need that information as well. Okay, so I'll pause for a quick second, Allison, just to see if there are any questions before I transition over to and pass it over to Marty.
No, at this time we're good. Thanks, Malik.
Great, thank you.
Great, thanks, Malik. If you want to release access, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so I can pivot to the application.
Sure.
Great. Great, so thank you everyone on the call for being generous and spending your time with us this afternoon. If anyone joined late here, please kindly just put yourself on mute and use the chat function to ask questions throughout. My name is Marty Castellan, and I'm in my 3rd year here at Oracle in our CX applications space. And over the past year, I've worked hands-on in servicing our customers with DataFox. By finding yourself on this webinar, the idea of your organization selling smarter or more intelligently might interest you. You might be here because your CEO or board of directors are asking, hey, how can we apply AI in our go-to-market and sales efforts? We hope you're not here just because you want a chance to win some free AirPods, but I can tell you that because you are here, you're already ahead of the competition, because most B2B companies continue to use CRM and customer databases in pretty simple ways, and it's costing them time and money every day that passes. So I'm really into DataFox because the clients we serve are innovating the way they go to market. They're redeveloping how their sales and marketing teams work together to drive revenue, and they're enabling sales reps, right, in the most dire of times while they're selling entirely remotely to drive equitable pipeline and hit their sales targets. So I'm excited to share with you today what DataFox is, give you a glimpse of a live demo, and the results some of our customers are experiencing, and some results that you can expect too. Here's our safe harbor as we get started here. And then architecturally, DataFox is now a key component of our CX application ecosystem. So on the bottom left, you see a baseline of data and AI. So, if you're using our applications such as CX Sales, DataFox is an opportunity as a +1 to rely on the best company data possible to power your sales approach. So what is DataFox if you haven't been introduced to it already? It's Oracle's company intelligence platform that we acquired in 2018. The company was founded in 2013 after a group of visionary leaders decided they'd had enough of manually updating data points on high volumes of companies in Excel sheets and CRMs and other company databases. So they automated this process by delivering AI-sourced, human-validated B2B data on millions of companies in a database that updates itself every day. And they sold access to this cloud-based platform to sales, marketing, and finance teams as a subscription model. So we categorize these constantly changing data points into 2 buckets. So on one hand, we have firmographic data points, things like a company's revenue, their employee count, the industry, how much traffic their website gets. And then also we carry real-time signal data points or trigger events. Like, as a company just made an acquisition, have they made a leadership change? Did they just launch a new product, or did they receive private funding? I'll show you all of these later, but these 100+ data points are updated in real time through AI on a daily basis. They're highly accurate and can be routed to your CRM or database in real time. So we're out of the box integration-wise to Oracle CX Sales, to Salesforce, and Eloqua. Those integrations can be done quickly. If you've implemented Oracle in the past, it's not the same process as an entire CRM or another SaaS edition. The data can also be funneled to any system of record with the help of a team like Apex IT. So here's the framework we take our clients on, and answers the question, how can we use AI in our go-to-market and sales efforts? Well, board of directors, if we're absolutely going to get you to a place where on the top right, there's an incredible amount of automation and focus in how we identify and serve customers. But it really starts, as Malik kind of introduced, in starting to clean up our data foundation. So what does that mean, clean up the data foundation? What we do is we partner with organizations. We'll start by diagnosing their account data. That is, what is in their application ecosystem that defines their accounts? We'll also do an analysis to find, what's incomplete, right? Where are the gaps in the data that DataFox can fill to create a more unified view? On average, we'll find that over 50% of the accounts in a given CRM are cluttered with unusable data, meaning the records are incomplete or invalid in some way. It's pretty much like you're in a darts tournament where you only have half as many darts as your competitors. We then take that data foundation and then we analyze it. So DataFox will help you find your ideal customer profile. That is, who's the perfect prospect for a solution, product, or service? We can pull the traits behind those attractive prospects and use indicators to codify an account score. If we quickly find that your highest paying customers are within financial services and have more than 5,000 employees, that's great. Let's go ahead and include that in our ideal customer profile. Using these insights, we can create a universal account score for every company in the database and then break them out into different tiers. Tier 1 accounts would be the perfect fit. This is the bay of customers that we strive to work with and will yield highest conversion. Tier 2 might be a niche use case. Sometimes we work well with them, sometimes we don't. Tier 3 and below might just not be worth our time and money, and reps shouldn't be prioritizing those accounts for certain reasons. So once this system is humming, we have a rock solid data foundation. We get a good sense of who our best prospects are. We're strengthening our sales and marketing efforts through prioritization. Now we can begin to enhance this process further by looking at, how can we expand the universe of accounts that we're going after? I'll dig into how DataFox will grow your total addressable market in the demo. Another mechanism in the system is enabling sales reps with smarter talking points, allowing them to approach an account at the right time. So once we achieve all of those things, sales and go-to-market teams are successfully deploying AI-driven methodology to increase revenue and are operating at a much more higher efficiency. Typically, when we see companies decide to invest in DataFox, they've realized the opportunity cost of not having some of those value props. So it's all about digging in. Actually, I'm going to be on this slide here. It's all about identifying these value props here, and it's like a one big dart game with your competitors, right? And it hits on all the pain points and challenges that B2B sales teams face every day. So by correcting issues on accounts and enriching the record with additional data points, we're giving sales reps sharper darts. Through account scoring and prioritization, we're telling them where to throw the darts. With business intelligence and real-time access to company milestones, we're telling them how to throw the darts that stick. There's a lot of complexity in B2B sales right now. Sellers must engage the right account at the right time. And I'm sure many of us in the room, in our experience, have had a couple of very extremely dull darts thrown our way. And then by expanding the universe of companies that should be targeted, there's more darts for us to throw. And then ultimately, by providing sales and marketing to work more, to work together in the same platform and focus on best fit accounts, we now have 2 dart throwers going at the same target. Now, before I hop into the live demo, this slide serves to show that you can use DataFox as the brain for your go-to-market approach. In addition to the 140 data points that we capture, is the ability for you to ingest your own data into the system and combine it with what we gather. So you can upload spreadsheets of companies that your company has C-level relationships with, companies that have attended a specific past webinar, or data points that were mentioned earlier. Which accounts do we have opportunities piped against, or which accounts have opportunities that have pushed, things like that. So you have the complete ability to use the data from your CRM, external Excel files, and then combine it with the information that we have and gather in DataFox. So I'm going to stop share now. And this is a good checkpoint to check the chat as I maneuver to the web application. Do we have any questions?
No, Marty, at this point, we're still good.
Terrific. So you should be able to see my screen here now. I'm going to go live into the web app. It's accessible as a cloud application on app.datafox.com. So as you log in, you're going to want to familiarize yourself with this simple dashboard. Here's our universe of companies on the right. So currently we gather data on about 6.6 million companies globally. This number is dynamic, meaning when DataFox recognizes a new company, it sweeps it into the database autonomously. So just as a reference, this number at this time last year was about 4 million. So we're adding millions of new companies for you to access on an annual basis. Here are the tabs on the left here in this pretty simple UI experience. As a sales rep, you're going to be spending most of your time in lists where you can store your lists of accounts in your territory and go further to identify lists of companies to target on a specific campaign, for example. In our companies tab here where I am, this is kind of our home. We'll take a peek at a company record here in a moment. You might also find yourself here in conferences. Oops, I just got to relog in here. But as I was saying, in the conferences tab, we index thousands of in-person and digital conferences globally. Some of those might be, conferences or events that some of your best customers are attending. As a sales ops professional, you'll be living in insights and account scoring. You'll also be living in this upload list tab where you can upload custom lists of your data to the platform. So if we go ahead and use our search bar up here, you can look at any of these companies here from our home base here, but our search bar up here, we can search for a company that we're all likely familiar with by now. So we're going to take a closer look at Zoom here. So here's an example of a company record here in DataFox. So up top here are all of the firmographic data fields that I was mentioning earlier. So things like public status or exit status, are they a private or public company? What's their latest revenue estimate and when was it last verified? Industry and sub-industry, their employee size, the CEO, where they're located, foundation, and then similar web rank is, how much web traffic is this website driving compared to all the others in the database, right? So through this link here, that's where we get that number. If we keep scrolling here, here's a quick company description. The account score, which we'll dive into, is dynamic, meaning if any of these data points change, the account score changes in real time. So you don't have to update the account score. It's also not a black box. So as a sales rep, right, I'm asking, why is Zoom a top tier account for me? It's because of these reasons here that my ops team has deemed an attractive prospect for me to call into first. Keywords here, this is pretty much how the company identifies itself. Here's the tech stack, the technologies that make up their business and what they run their business on. Similar companies is just another way of saying who are their competitors, large and small. Corporate hierarchy, which we'll look at here a little bit more in depth. And then lastly, how much capital have they raised and from whom? On the left here, we have this mini nav. So signals, I was mentioning earlier, the signal data points or the trigger events that we find. Here are those 70 signal data points that are structured and fed into this account record on a chronological timeline. So here are some of the recent signals from Zoom that can serve as talking points or reasons for you to qualify an account and outreach. But you have complete autonomy here to go ahead and filter for specific signals, right? So some of these are specific growth signals. We also have financial signals, have companies made acquisitions, gone through mergers, restructuring, organizational change. Others here, are there any leadership changes? Have they hired new chief executives? Have they been receiving notoriety in public awards or public lists online? What events or conferences are they involved with or are they presenting at? And then some other custom ones here, negative news, if there's anything being discussed about this company online that would report any layoffs, legal issues, financial challenges. We can go ahead and screen for any of these signals on any given company or any given list of companies. This job postings tab here is quite phenomenal. So you can learn so much about a company based on what they're hiring for, right? So some of these things, if I'm trying to do some research on Zoom as a prospect, I want to see, what they might be hiring for, what technologies that might be entailing, and the direction of what the company is going forward with. If you're a company that struggles with corporate structure in your CRM, this is about as real time as a corporate structure as you're going to get. So when we're talking about tracking acquisitions, mergers, who's responsible for which accounts at a rep level, this can be a huge value add. Similar companies here. So our AI engine will digest companies that might look alike to Zoom. And then I have this instance set up to connect to Salesforce, right? And I can quickly sync this account record to Salesforce if I have it set up to that system. So if it wasn't there already, we can also provide the information. You could get in contact with your Oracle sales rep, how to hook this up to CX Sales. It's a very quick integration. We also provide a link here to Sales Navigator, which is by far the best way to find individual contacts in an account. So are there any questions I can ask or answer before I hop into an example territory list if I were a sales rep? Anything in the chat?
Yeah, Marty, at this point, there is a question from Dan as to how do you differentiate DataFox from other systems such as D&B or Hoover's?
It's a good question. So DataFox is, it's not only a proprietary data provider, but what we see is a key attribute to DataFox that we don't see with something like a D&B or some of the other data providers is we have the ability to automate on top of the data, and then we have the ability to analyze it as well. So you might just subscribe to a number of third-party data sources, D&B being one of them. You might not have the complete ability that DataFox does to analyze the data that we provide at a deep enough level to see how can we balance territories? What are some of the anomalies in our data? How can we have our reps selling more efficiently? So not only are we analyzing the data and carving out additional account scores, which we see is pretty significant for DataFox, but then we're automating on that process. So if you set up a dynamic list of what are the accounts that meet these criteria, let's say you have 100 accounts, or I can even go into a live example here. I can screen for companies that I've deemed New England healthcare growth targets, right? So there's 245 companies in my list. If the 246th company meets that criteria, it can go ahead and add itself to the data set automatically. And if I have all of these records going to a list within my CRM, or this is a list that I want some analysts to look at to screen some of these companies for maybe an investment purpose or a sales purpose, that list is going to be updated in real time, and you're going to get the data accurately in real time. That's one of the other key differentiators. This data set updates itself nightly. So as I was introducing DataFox, one of the big challenges that the founders saw was there are other ways to do this, but it takes a lot of effort for a data set of this size to update itself, right? So D&B might only be once a month or twice a month. This is happening every single night. And in the day and age that we're in, you can't really afford to not have some of this information in a real-time basis. I hope that answered the question sufficiently. But if you're interested more about that, I would just ping your Oracle sales rep or your Apex rep who got you registered here.
Yeah, so another question, is it possible to sync data with a relational database?
So it's a good question. So that's more of a technical question that we'll have to default to the technical team about. So we do connect to other systems of record. So we don't just integrate with CX Sales or Salesforce or Eloqua, but via API, we can interrogate the data points and feed any of the data that you see here, typically to any external system. So it would just have to be kind of a process where we map out what needs to go where and what data points need to be carried over. So I would, again, get in contact with your Oracle sales rep to vet out that opportunity.
Can you explain, Marty, really quickly, can you explain a company's account score?
Sure. So again, if I go back to Zoom, and part of this is going to go through the eyes of sales operations as well, right? So if I look at Zoom's account score, and I mentioned it's not a black box, right? This is pretty much random attributes that I've set up for in this instance. But once we understand the data that we provide and we analyze it and we see what do the best customers of ours exhibit, what are some of their technologies, what industry are they in, you know, have they attended past conferences, do we typically see, yeah, you know, when we get off the phone and someone says, hey, we're growing, our sales force is growing, is that a key indicator of success for us? We'll go ahead and glean the insights off of our best customers in this insights tab here, and we'll run a report. So I have in here, just for example, here's our 250 highest paying customers, just as an example. Once you drill into this report, this is going to tell you, you know, what's statistically relevant based on all the companies on our list measured against what is available in DataFox. So what we do is we measure this on Z-score, or in other words, you know, how statistically relevant is this in standard deviations from the norm in our list versus what we see in DataFox. So in this case, right, we see that some of our best paying customers have over 5,000 employees. Maybe we could look at the funding, the keywords. We do really well in financial services, some other industries here. So the higher the Z-score here, the more likely it is that that's a very good market for you guys to get into. And right, so we can then use some of these attributes, use some of these characteristics of some of the best paying customers and go into our account scoring tab here, right? So this is pretty much your canvas to build your account score and associate weights against any different data points that we provide, but then also you can associate weights against any of the information that we ingest from your CRM, from external Excel files, right? As I mentioned earlier, if we know that our C-level has a really good C-level relationship with Zoom or a series of companies, let's say 100 companies, we can upload that list and say, that's essential for us, right? We know there's a warm relationship at the top and we want our sales reps to know that. You can go ahead and associate a weight against that there. So this is completely customizable to you. And again, it's not a black box. So once we go ahead and publish this criteria, it'll put all the companies in our data set on a distribution. So as you see here, you can allocate different tiers. So my tier 1 companies, right? If I have nearly 3,000 tier 1 companies that I set here, that can be one tier. I can set 2 tiers, a 3rd tier, based on the account scores that they measure up to, right? So you can manage this here. If you want to select a percentile, maybe the 97th percentile instead of being up there towards 100, that's going to scale your account score a little bit further down. But right, this is completely up to you how you want to manage your tiers here, because if I go into a sales reps list, let's say this is my example sales rep list, you know, if I'm day one hopping into a sales territory at a new company and I say, I want to know what's the shortest path for me to hit my number, to make money this year, I'm going right to the top here, right? So without this data intelligence from operations saying, hey, you know, these might be my best prospects for me to call first, you're going to spend copious amounts of time on the internet researching companies, looking for data points that we have on these companies in this database already. And you might be calling on accounts that aren't in a position to buy without you even knowing. So with this account scoring model, you have complete ability to customize what your sales reps should be going after and going after the lowest hanging fruit in the territory first. Let me know if I can expand on that or if there's any follow-up questions.
There was a question on consulting about, or providing consulting on account scoring, and I did say yes independently and some of the private chat. But if there's any way you want to elaborate, Marty, on the consulting aspect of it, or how we can go ahead and personalize those account scores for individual organizations that may be helpful for the greater team.
Mm-hmm. So, you can certainly use the insights here, and that's a good start, right? We're going to see what are some of the measurables in terms of industry, what technologies they use, the amount of funding that they've received. But really what it comes down to, you can hire a consultant or a different firm to look at what is our ideal customer profile. But it really just starts with, collaborating internally as a sales management team, saying, here's, doing the analysis. What are our best paying customers doing? What industries are they in? What are our sales reps saying when they get off the phone? Are they getting happy ears hearing that a company just acquired another company? Is that kind of a trigger for us as, okay, that's an attractive prospect that we want to keep, pounding the phones on? We really have to work on that deal. So it's all about, you have to decide as yourself, as a sales management team, what do I want my teams going after? What accounts do I want my reps calling on? I don't know if you guys want to hire an outside firm to do that, or you guys rely on consultants to figure that out for you. But DataFox is a good way to start, and it's a tool where you can flex its muscle to build out this account score and distribute it against all territories in your CRM and in your database. So we have 10 minutes left here, and I just quickly want to go through an exercise, right? If I was in a sales operations role and I'm interested in expanding my total addressable market, right? That was one of the key value props that, a lot of our customers use DataFox for. In our data set here, you have this filter option here, right? So we can filter any companies in our data set. It's the world's most dynamic AI-driven spreadsheet. But we can filter for all of these fields here based on industry, technologies they use, signals. You can ingest data from your CRM and other things, right? But let's say, show me all of the tier 1 accounts because we published our account score. Let's go ahead and do that. We'll get about 3,000. No, we won't. I shifted the distribution here. So if we go up here, this is in real time. If I go to account score and now select my tier 1 accounts, right? So you might have 376 companies here as your tier 1, right? That's pretty arbitrary. You can associate tiers as you want. Point is, right, this ability to sync this up to Salesforce or CX Sales, you can now screen for all the companies that are tier 1 accounts that might not be in my CRM already. So, right, if you hit apply, it's not going to do anything here because this instance isn't hooked up to a CRM, but you might see there's a delta there, right? So you might see a delta of 100 companies, and that's being conservative. There might be a delta of 500 companies, but in the chance that you deem that there's a tier 1 account that's not yet in your CRM, you want to go ahead and push that to your CRM, assign it to a sales rep quickly, and having them start calling on them. If you can identify within 500 accounts, 10 potential net new deals, you got to think about what the resulting ARR would be for your company, or what is the net outcome of using DataFox to find your addressable market. If you can go back to leadership and say, we identified 10,000 new companies this year, and we were able to close 5 net new logos, or 5, 10, 100, whatever that number might be, out of companies that weren't in our CRM last year, I think you guys are going to be in a pretty good spot when it comes to how are we going to market effectively? How do we know that our universe of companies is continually up to date? That's the last exercise that I'll show here, unless there's any remaining questions in the chat before I kind of just go back to some customer success we've seen.
Marty, there was one question that I did receive personally. So there was a question about when you think about the account scoring, you think about the master data management data model that we were sharing, or Apex IT was sharing on the first slide. The question was, is that something that Apex IT is able to assist with in terms of the strategy and the approach of looking at the current data and what they should be planning for in terms of a future state data model before plugging in something like DataFox? And the answer is absolutely. Right, so we focus on the data model. It's a very data-driven approach to look at and assess the current state, to be able to then identify essentially the value of what DataFox brings to the table, in order to be able to identify some of those KPIs and you know what you're seeing right here from Marty of actual customer stories of success that can also be achieved.
Correct. And other companies are getting returns on their partnership with us today. So, you know, we've made a whole fuss about data. And at the surface, you might understand or contextualize, hey, we might have a data problem, you know, but what is the opportunity cost of letting that linger? Some of the results that companies are seeing now is a result of subscribing to DataFox. You know, Goldman was able to increase market coverage with the same size team. Twilio, 1,500 new targets enter their funnel into their CRM per week. And some of the other ones here, as a result of deploying account scoring, some accounts like Sigster, increased meetings and pipeline account TalkDesk, sourcing their revenue from highest scoring customers. And then on the data management side and the cost saving side, DataFox you know, allows Deloitte to cut down on data management activities on their universe of companies by 75%. And this is something that we do at Oracle here with DataFox. We want to build a business case, you know, configurable to some things that you might be interested in, right? If your business challenge or ask is, we need to generate, you know, net new pipeline and equitable closable opportunities this year, how do we do that? You know, you might start and think, okay, are we focusing on the right accounts? To be most successful, you have to focus on the right accounts and approach them in a way that is reflective positively on your business, right? So if we're able to produce numbers like this in pipeline creation, in new closed revenue, but then give hours back in sales reps day to find data points and then take action faster than the competing rep, these are things that we can measure. And then from a cost savings perspective, again, if you're subscribed to D&B or Hoover's, you want to see what the true value is that you're getting in return. Are they, you know, are you getting measurable return on your investment? Because here at Oracle, we've swapped D&B out for DataFox for everything we do from a data, you know, perspective on the baseline. You know, from doing that, we've consolidated our subscriptions to external data vendors, and we've saved a whole heck of a lot of money doing it. And then again, you're going to spend a lot less time balancing territories, creating new territories. One of the other success stories I didn't mention, we partnered with a large IT provider within the last year, and they acquired another company who had 350 additional sales reps coming over and joining forces. They acquired DataFox, and we worked with them to balance territories that were, you know, equitable. So when those sales reps, those 350 sales reps started on day one, they knew where to spend their time and everything was up and running. So if you're active in the mergers and acquisitions game, or you're part of organizational change and how do we add a whole crop of sales reps to our systems already, or how do we get them up and running, DataFox can lend a very good hand in getting you started. So I realize we're coming up here on 2 minutes. I'll just leave it open now for any additional questions.
And there's nothing in the chat, but if anyone wants to either send over a question or vocalize a question, please don't hesitate to do so. All right. Well, if any questions come up after the fact, I've provided my contact information. We've all provided our contact information, so please don't hesitate to reach out independently, and we'll make sure to get you in touch with the appropriate individual who can answer your question. And we'll also go ahead and send over the recording of this webinar as well, if you want to share that with any of your peers. And thank you very much. We appreciate you attending this afternoon.